Welcome to HortTube. My name is Jim Putnam. This is kind of a mid-project update on this project that Jeremy is fully engaged in. If you saw I'll link up here in the corner the first video from this, where the planning stages of your project. And I was over here and saw these big five very large stones that have ended up in the end here. And I also put the drone up above this when you were putting the blue line on the ground for the shape of this project. Can you kind of walk through what you've done so far and why you've piled everything up here in the middle?
One thing the only way that this project is possible with that machine, skid steer with tracks, is that it's an order of operations. So I have to build certain parts of it before building others to maintain access for the machine to do what it does best. So I actually started around on the back side.
Yeah.
And last time we put the drone in the air, we were able to see the blue line, and I used that to tell me where my edge was. So once I put the edge stones in, I stacked on top of it and got tall enough so that when I'm backfilling, I can still get a lot taller yet. Different pallets, different kinds of stones. Most of these back here were small.
Right, so this is a large, as an example, this is a large boulder.
Yes.
This is a medium boulder.
That's a medium.
And this would be something off a small, small boulder.
Smalls are in that 10 to 150 pound range, 200 pounds. Mediums are 250 to 1,700 pounds.
Right.
And then the larges are really anything goes above 1,700 pounds.
And you're kind of, fading it back a bit as you go.
There's a little bit of pitch. But again, this is not a formal wall. This is a wall built so that I can put plants in it.
Right.
This wall will not last 100 years. I just hope that it outlasts me.
Right. Right. You're grabbing a stone and just, I did the same thing when I was doing stonework. I think, a lot of people are looking for the perfect stone in the perfect spot, and I'll grab a stone and flip it 5 different ways, and it just kind of, oh, there it is. Yeah.
To know what the perfect stone is to claim that you know every possibility that a stone has, which is impossible. And so what I like to do is maintain a queue of stones. So have 10 or 15 stones nearby, and this is for the smalls, something I can lift. And that way I can always pick one up and just try it. I'm not going to the pallet and say, that's the perfect stone, I'm going to take that one. If all I do is cherry pick the perfect stone, then I'm going to run out of cherries about halfway through the project.
Yeah, that's very true.
You don't want that to happen. That's a bad feeling.
That's very true. And then the first part of your wall will be like perfectly stacked pieces, and then the rest looks like it literally was a pile. That's how that will end up working.
Exactly.
Right.
The size might change or the angles, and it's all about kind of probability. So whatever mountainside these came from, they have a certain gradient or range of fracture angles, and some are more probable than others. So I'm always looking for, certain fracture angles fit perfectly, and some don't. And
let's walk around and go over the path that you created, because we talked about there was going to be a path over the top of it. And
so I came through here and just stacked and probably broke every rule of stone stacking, but in over 10 years of stacking, I haven't had a wall fail yet.
And there's one more, and you've got one big one sitting on some smaller ones. So we saw the first 2 large ones over there. They're sitting on the ground, but then this one is elevated. Yeah, it's got some moss on it.
Yeah, so this is not perfectly raked. This is still an unfinished product. But one of those natural inclinations is to put the biggest stones right on the ground and then kind of keep getting smaller and smaller as you get higher and higher. But one great advantage of having a diesel machine is that you can just lift a stone and set it wherever you want.
Right.
And so that's what this accommodated, which also allows for kind of a 2-layer effect. This big stone is set back a little bit from the front rocks, and therefore that provides more planting opportunities, like these wilty daylilies here.
Right, yeah, you've already got some plants in it. But
just a couple, yeah.
I also like this place right here where you didn't just, here you're just kind of following along with that blue line, and then it rides up in here, and there's ledges here where you're stepping back and you're You're not just following that blue line.
That's right. And the edge, yes. So almost always right at the ground, you will notice that I have followed the line perfectly. Yeah. But after that, anything goes. And I've found that, you know, as I'm looking at a wall, my eye can follow a line that breaks in. In fact, my eye can follow a line that is mostly not there. But as soon as the line breaks out, then I am distracted. So I like these indentations, but I like to look as if the whole thing got cut off by a saw somewhere.
Right.
There's nothing that goes beyond a certain point.
Right. And we can walk up above, you know, up and over the path that's been created. So yeah, this is really nice. And I was over here the other day and filmed a bit before you even got started on this. You had already formed this path coming up over the top. And so you've got, I mean, your soil is set. You don't have, you know.
Yeah, on this side, and it'll get raked out. It'll settle some.
Right.
And it'll get covered in plants here pretty soon. I'll put some micro irrigation up here so that it stays moist enough.
And you didn't waste money on permatil down in the bottom. It's top. You got topsoil, and then up toward the top is where you're going to have this.
That's right. And actually, even if the whole thing was this permatil mix, I wouldn't consider it a waste of money, because with air and water, roots will grow. So unfortunately, I've had to use a core of topsoil, which is compacted now under the weight of the machine. So there will be a limited root zone in here, but still plenty to grow anything.
Right. And you've got some wood you're using.
Yeah, just wood, right?
Driftwood.
Yeah, you got to love driftwood. Here's a piece of juniper. It's a root ball, and it will last indefinitely in this situation. So why not stick it in there and it becomes part of the wall?
And you got plant pockets.
Oh, I got plant pockets. Yeah,
plenty of plant pockets.
Yep.
We'll go on around, and Steph can follow us and see how this entire path up and over has taken shape. Yeah, it looks great. Looks great. So there's your fourth of the large stones, and you've still got one on a pallet back here behind us. So you've got one more big one to move. So
yeah, I spent some time thinking about where these big rocks went, and just thinking about the entire circle essentially, and this one fit perfectly at the bottom of this path.
That thing looks great.
The wall has this curve that matches this face. So I believe I got this on the GoPro. Hopefully that worked out, and it just took the forks and I just dropped it into place, and that was it.
Yeah, and another piece of driftwood here that's got a plant pocket right in the middle of it.
Oh yeah, no, it's
right.
This is great, and it's just, again, an indentation as if this is always here. And if it was always here, then trees would have already been here.
Right.
And unfortunately, this one just didn't make it.
Right. So how high are you going to go in this area right here?
This is it right here. And really, it's the permatil mix itself. It can't handle any steeper slope than that. Right. Nor can me walking around. So I won't get any steeper than this. And really, you're seeing it as tall as it is now. Obviously, it's going to continue further. Yeah. And then slope down here. And there'll be a rock face here as well once I close myself out.
Right, and you haven't closed yourself out, so you continue to have access to that track.
Yep. Yeah, so here's my stone queue is here in front of me, most of which I can lift. I need to close a gap here so that I can stack enough permatil it doesn't fall through. I don't think it's perfect, but it works, and if I put enough horticultural duct tape on it, it'll look all right. But I'm just going to grab one of the first stones I see here, try to lift with my legs as much as possible, which I can tell you my mom was absolutely right about that back in the day. I'll just try shoving this one in here and see if it fits. What I like to say is that I like to have it so that every rock talks with at least one other rock, works with at least one other rock, and
right. So it looks like those two have fractured.
Yeah,
they're still they look like they were maybe, yeah.
Yeah, it's not perfect. I don't know. Just have to feel it and see from distance if it works out, and it does not quite. It's not horrible, but that's why it's good to have a stone cue nearby.
Yeah, something in this pile will work.
Oh yeah, yeah. Even if you don't know it at the time. So let's take out a little bit of this. See if I can put it further back. There we go. Now these two faces line up. So this flat edge, this little tiny section, actually matches this plane here. In that, even though maybe 10% of this rock face matches the 90% of this rock face, they're talking to each other. And maybe they either fractured from each other or they aged a very long time with each other. And then nice backfill means it's nice to backfill. It's not difficult at all.
Right. And again, you've got a plant pocket that you just made.
Sure. I mean, I can easily stick anything here. But actually, things like mosses and little ferns and selaginella, really, you name it. You can always, there's somewhere to put thousands of different kinds of plants.
Right. And there's a built-in drink holder right there.
That's the plan all along. You got to have those.
Right.
So again, it's not perfect, but I'm not looking to be perfect. I'm just learning. I'm looking to learn from what the stone is trying to tell me. Listen for the story, as if this thing unfolded over thousands of years, where Mother Nature pushed it all together. And that's what I'm looking to stack, is whatever happened over tens of thousands of years.
We were here maybe a week and a half ago or something like that and did the middle update, and now we're here after you have finished laying the stone. Of course, this project is going to be far from finished as people are seeing it. It's got some settling today.
Yeah,
right.
I can still see soil, so we got a few plants to put in.
Right, yeah. I think you were right about here, and we hadn't done the point out to the end.
Yep.
And not only have you gotten the rest of this in, you've already got some plants in here as well. Do you want to name a couple things here that are in? And
oh, sure, yeah. Put a couple of course, what you're looking at right now is the north face of these rocks. And again, I've talked about the type of light that things get. So technically, this is full sun, but it is not as hot as a south-facing sun. So I've actually plugged in a couple different kinds of ferns in here. I've got this guy, which depends on full sun. This is kind of like a banana. This is Insetae morellii. I think it's a monotypic. I think it's monotypic genus. I think, but anyway, it's beautiful. It has these red tropical banana leaves all summer and kind of winter hardy. Maybe, maybe not. I believe that down in this pocket, though, it will come back for another season.
Right.
Of course, this is it's a little guy, but this is one of those Plant Delight 1-quart pots here. This is Baptisia arachnifera. So it is a Baptisia, but it's one that looks more like a eucalyptus at this stage.
Like a eucalyptus, yeah, it sure does.
It gets these little yellow flowers. It blooms in the middle of summer. Of course, extremely drought tolerant. It is native, I think, to Georgia.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And I believe it's only native in like 1 or 2 counties.
Okay, I got you.
I don't think it's it's federally endangered. Of course, Plant Delights has been propagating it from seed from a plant we've had in the garden for at least 2 decades now.
Making it less endangered.
That's certainly Plant Delight's goal. You know, the more
right.
that it's out there, the more that there are. So
right, and the less likely somebody will go dig one up, or
yeah,
you know,
yeah, and
or there's no need to.
Exactly, that's the important thing.
They're commercially available. They
Yeah,
don't have to be dug up. Yeah,
that's the big part of it. So I got a couple of those, which I'm really excited to have more of. I've already got a couple in the garden. I've now had them for 2 and 3 years, and I can't get enough of this plant.
Right.
It is an outstanding summer plant.
So you got a Carex up there.
This is a new, it's new to me. I think it's only been on the market 2 or 3 years tops. It's called Carex Feather Falls.
Yeah.
And it can grow in full sun. It can grow in some shade. Yeah. But to me, as a tight clumping variegated grass looking thing, it's a Carex. It's not a grass, but it certainly looks like a grass.
Yeah.
And it can do the job of a grass.
And it stays evergreen.
Yeah, it's totally evergreen. Yeah.
You can cut it back if you want to at the end of winter if you need to.
Sure,
or not.
Yeah, take a weed whacker, head shears, a golf club to it. It really doesn't matter. And
one thing I'd like to say about these Plant Masters series where I'm interviewing other people about plants, if you start to see these in 2, 3, 4 videos, then you know it's a good plant. So we've seen this at Dr. Armitage's garden,
good.
And now we've seen it here in Jeremy's garden. So again, you see these, plant collectors all collecting it. It's probably a pretty good one.
One thing I look for is, it doesn't matter how common or rare, I look for plants that do something that no other plant in that situation can do, or it's doing it better than any other plant in that situation can do. And Carex Feather Falls, like you said, it's evergreen. Yeah. It looks just like an ornamental grass, but it clumps. It's a little shorter. Yeah. There's no other plant right now that can do what Carex Feather Falls does. Just like Juniperus Allgold over here. Yeah. It's right over there. Again, I'd mentioned I bought the first 5 off of the Plant Delights assembly line 9 or 10 years ago now. I need more of them. There's no other plant out there that can do what this plant does.
It's a pretty one, and it'll cover whatever ground you want it to cover, and you can cut it back anytime you want to cut it back.
And it grows at it's not very tall. It only gets a foot and a half tall, but it's so dense that, except for a very rare tree seedling, nothing gets through it. It requires no weeding in its center.
So you got a few salvia up there, it looks like.
Yeah, a little seedling salvia farinaceae from a friend. I've got some small Thuya de Groot spire.
Okay, gotcha.
Again, just kind of feeling it out, and I just needed some plants right away.
Yeah, right. Yeah. That doesn't mean they found their final found their final home. So let's walk to the end and around. I want to show people this seeding area. So he's got these pockets in here. Here, and again, he stacks stone for plants. I think you've said that before. There's an agave in here.
Yeah, put agave there, and then agave montana down in here a little bit further. It doesn't want to be wet in the winter at all, and I think this will be a good spot for it. Agave montana is one of the most beautiful agaves in my opinion. And
how big does that one ultimately get?
4 or 5 feet across.
Okay. So it's gonna stick out of here.
Google this thing though, the flower on it. If I could ever get one to flower, it is stunning in a way that I cannot explain. I don't have the words actually to explain how beautiful the flower is. So Google agave montana, if you can.
And you've got some other spots obviously you're going to be planting in.
And I've got a little conifer here, a little fir that I've got in. Here is a Nurembergia gracilis, I think is the species, but Nurembergia starry eyes. And just like that Baptisia arachnifera over there, it's one of those plants that it was collected or it exists in the wild, and it looks just like this. And actually, if you pan the camera over there, that's a 2-year-old
right at the bottom
version of it there. It's unimproved. That's how it looks in nature. It's just like Baptisia arachnifera. It's one of my favorite plants, yet it didn't go through some extensive, exhaustive breeding program. It's just, that is the way that nature has made it. And so I really enjoy including plants like that in the garden. So Nurembergia starry eye loves the drought, likes it dry, likes the heat.
So coming around, you made this point, which you had drawn out here, on the plan. The point came to fruition. And then this area, is, burn pile kind of people gathering area. And so you use these two really large stones to create seating. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've got 6 or 7 spots.
This is
here.
super comfortable, actually.
Actually, I was really, I adjusted them to try to make them so that I'm 5'7", and it's almost a little too tall for me, but I've got these seats down here that are perfect for me. But I tried to get some kind of a backrest in here too. Because if I'm just hunched over the fire, that's great for a while, but I want to be able to lean back. And I don't plan to put any agave back here. I don't want to get poked when I lean back
no
too
agave,
far.
no cacti area.
Yeah.
Right.
But,
so you got room for maybe 6 people.
Yeah,
actually, to sit across here.
6, or if people like each other, then maybe 7 or 8.
Right.
And then there's a couple over there. There's a few over there. So really about 10 to 12 people can sit around a fire area.
Right.
And one of the things that I noticed when I put in the first few rocks last year is the way that sound, the crackle of the fire bounces off the rock, and you get this kind of stereo sound, and it's amazing. It's like what you would expect in if you had a campfire in the woods, old woods where you have big enough trees to bounce that sound back at you.
Yeah. So there were 5 of these large stones. 2 of them are here.
Yeah.
We saw one I think it was one of the last stones you placed toward the point, and then you've got one a little further around you can show
over
folks.
there, and then there's one just on the path, just going up the path.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And how much did these? How much were these?
These were between, the smallest one back there is about 1,800. This one's about 3,500.
Yeah.
3,200. So they average over a ton.
Ton and a half in that in that area. So why don't you talk about the soil mix and show the wall off heading around that direction.
I can't say enough good things about permatil, and I'm sure that I've mentioned that before. This mix, the core of this berm is soil. It's just native soil from the area. But the last 1.5 feet or so is it's permatil about 40%, just a little shy of 50%. A bunch of compost at 30%. And then it got a little weird. Of course, I put some soil in it for a mineral base, but for other micronutrients, I put about 5 to 7% Chapel Hill grit.
Okay.
I actually put it in there, and you can kind of see these little light spots all in here. That's all Chapel Hill grit. Decomposed granite's going to have a lot of different nutrients in it.
Right. A lot of people use those for paths.
Yeah. I mean, it's generally used as a path material around here, and I want just a little bit of it in the soil.
Right.
I got this from locally here in Raleigh. I got it from a place called Triangle Landscape Supply, and I can say that first of all, they're really the only people that I know of around here who sell permatil in bulk. Which, that's important because I got to have the stuff. That's it was their dump trucks who rolled in and dropped this off for me.
You talk about the soil having mineral content. I have in consultations when I talk to people about having raised beds frequently, and they're growing their food in all compost.
Oh
that soil, improving soil makes more nutrient dense food. Using compost. I'm a big giant fan of compost.
Got to have it.
Yeah, got to have it. But at the same time, that minerals that are in either clay, sand, whatever, are important. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and that's, I always, I would never want to plant just in compost or just in potting mix unless I'm in a situation where I have to amend with fertilizer.
Right.
But a healthy living soil is just that. It's soil, and that's what this is. There's enough soil in here that there will be a supply of phosphorus, a supply of potassium, there will be calcium, magnesium, all the big micro and macronutrients that plant needs to grow. And then you'll have the life in the soil, the microbes, which that's one of the things that helps get those nutrients into the plant.
Right. Yeah. They make them available.
That's right.
They take it out of the
That's
rock
right.
and make it available. So you want to walk around and show off a couple
Sure.
more plants that you got in here so far?
Yeah, I transplanted one of my dwarf bamboos. I think this one will make it. It's maybe a little late to transplant it, but we'll see how that goes. As these metasequoias that are above us here continue to grow, even though this bank faces west and then faces south, that light is going to go away here in the next 5 to 10 years.
Right.
It will, even though this is west and south facing, this will become shadier and shadier in the next decade. So I've planted things that I believe can transition into that as they mature.
Right.
And so here are 3 very young Areobatria, which is that loquat, I think is the common name.
Yep.
Has an edible fruit. I haven't tried it, but
Yeah, right. Right.
but, if we have a winter that does not drop below 20, which is rare until recently, if it stays above 20, you'll get a fruit the following spring that actually matures over the winter.
Right.
But beautiful, nicely scented flowers. I like Areobatria because it can take sun, it can take shade, so it's able to transition into a shadier situation. And it's like it's a little like a magnolia from distance with those, as you can see, the big dark green leaves, but it has a very different form, kind of a more of a small tree form, which is what I want here. Whereas magnolia, they're big evergreen.
Yeah, and you won't mistake it for tropical. You know,
No,
it's tropical. It
Yeah.
has that tropical look to it too. Like
It does.
this is one of the larger stones you elevated this one off the off the
that's-
ground and created some pockets.
A lot of times when people stack stone, and this was my natural inclination when I started, if it's a really big stone, I want to put it right on the ground, and
Right.
then I kind of keep
The
getting
mediums and the smallers
Yes,
and little.
I can lift this one, you know. And,
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But because I had the option to use diesel in this project,
Right.
what I wanted to do was put some stones right on the ground and then actually bring some of the big stones, not all, but some of them, at least one level off.
Right.
And this is that case. This is an 1,800-pound stone, and its weight is fully on these rocks, these 2 rocks below. And because this garden has a nice sand base, I
Right.
found, and now that I've been doing this for 8-9 years, my first real rock projects, I'm not seeing them settle. I don't see them sink very much. So, and it's okay if they do. That's the beauty of it.
Right.
When you stack stone for the plants, there's no artificial pattern, or I try to avoid an artificial pattern, something that looks human constructed. And so if it settles a little bit, that's actually that's fine.
Yeah, that's the way it would look. That's
you
the
know,
way it would look in nature.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have on the point on the front carries over to that bed that was talked about in the first video, in the
Yes.
planning video, and then this curve comes around
Yeah.
and connects to an old wall that you
Yes.
have right here, which curves around
Yeah.
past the camera. So all of this has been put into this with, every line doesn't just end; it continues across the path.
Correct. I like to think of it again like somehow I came through with a stone saw and cut all this off.
Yeah.
And so
right.
there's nothing really that juts out, but at any point there might be no line at all where something can cut in.
Right.
And so that's what allows this path to cut in and around.
and go right over the top,
Yeah.
basically.
Kind of like an on-ramp. I try to, when I do paths or ramps like this, every time I'm on I-40, the on-ramps, off-ramps,
Yeah.
the curve, if I can copy that in a smaller scale, all that thinking has already been done as far as how curves work, how curves are intuitive, in this case for high-speed driving.
Right.
In my case, high-speed driving anyway.
Yeah.
And so if I can make that same curve at that same angle of attack that you have when you're leaving or entering an interstate, I don't really have to know why, but I can rest assured that actually is a very effective curve and will work well with our minds. It'll work well aesthetically,
Right.
and bring us through the garden.
Well, nice. Awesome. So it'll take a few months to get this thing planted and get the grass to come back where the equipment's worn it out.
I'm going to get rid of all the grass in here. Eventually this will be gravel. And that's why I put this edging in right away, is it really cuts this whole area off.
Right, but your grass will fill back in pretty quickly. So we're going to do some additional videos here as some other things in this landscape are going in, and you've got a crevice garden job going in that we may go and take a look at in Chapel Hill.
That's takes up all my time. So I haven't been able to get at the weeds here in the Bristol Briar much because I've been in Durham, Chapel Hill, not far from Duke, building a crevice garden out of recycled concrete. Actually concrete that they excavated from the property as they were tearing down the house that was there, and they're building their new house.
Right.
So.
You can send me one of those photos, and I'll put it up right here.
Okay.
That you took the other day.
Cool.
So, thank you guys for following along. Jeremy put in a lot of stone in a short period of time, and we'll get back over here as the plants develop in it. Thanks for watching.